Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. The purpose of today's webinar is to help educate you on solar and the potential benefits you can see by converting to solar. What we'll do is we'll hope to provide you with enough information to see if solar is right for you and your family. We'll go over how solar works. We'll talk about what makes us unique in the industry. And by the end of this webinar, one of two things will happen. You'll determine that solar is not right for you, and if not, that's okay. You'll be more educated and informed, or you'll see the benefits for your home and we'll provide you with the next steps to prepare a custom savings proposal for you to review with your family. There are a lot of myths regarding solar. Solar has actually been around for over 60 years, and until recently, solar was considered expensive, largely because there wasn't access to low interest loans that allow you to replace the bill you're currently receiving to rent your energy from the monopolized utility system with a bill that is a payment to own a power plant that can either be on your roof or your backyard, whereby you can purchase power from yourself and add an asset to your home. And we'll talk more about that soon. Access to the sun has been commonly misunderstood. You might be someone like me who actually has received a sunburn on a cloudy day. It's because solar panels actually operate off of UV rays, which means they can create energy even when it's cloudy or raining. And the technology really hasn't changed much over the last 60 plus years. Panels have gotten just a little bit smaller. They've become more efficient, and basically they look better because they've gone from what used to be a bright blue to a flat black type of look. There's a consideration of the best way to go solar, whether it's ownership and leases, and we focus primarily on ownership, and we'll talk more about that during the proposal phase. And this is the one that I think most people just don't know who to trust. Our goal is to educate you on the benefits. And we hope that in doing so, when you choose to go solar, you'll have a trust factor with us that we can help become the person to look at the options that are best for you when you convert to solar. I've had the benefit of interviewing hundreds of people over the years and talking about how we power the grid. And most people basically don't give this much thought. They flip a switch and everything works. A deeper look is that energy is very dirty. It's also an extremely inefficient process. And if you take coal, for example, only 1/3 of the initial energy that's available actually makes it to the home. And of course, we're paying for all of that. So a lot of it is wasted, and most of it comes from dirty energy. Whether that concerns you or not, there's a contrast to that. You can look at how solar works. Solar panels capture the ultraviolet rays, as I mentioned earlier. They channel what's known as direct current from the panels into an inverter, and that inverter converts it into AC, is what we actually use in the home. So solar energy is really a good alternative to replace the fossil fuels, and they are becoming a major energy source. And I'm sure we can all agree that pollution around the world has gotten worse. 7 million people perish annually because of pollution, because of the after effects. And unlike conventional power as we know it today, solar produces no harmful emissions that hurt the environment. It's clean, it's renewable, and it uses the most natural of all resources, the sun. Solar power also helps you become independent of the electricity monopolies, so you will not be at the mercy of the utility providers. They can raise their energy costs, but you won't be affected by it like someone who is renting their energy, because you will have a power plant and you will be in control of your pricing. The solar panel is comprised of primarily crystalline cells, many cells that are then turned into a panel. And if you look at this panel, most of it is the protection. It prevents any of the elements from impacting the panel itself. If you look at the glass, that's tempered glass, so it protects that panel from any of the elements, inclusive of hail. And we can talk more about that during the presentation for your particular home. When you take more than one panel, you form what's called a solar array. And our goal is to design an array to replace the energy that you're currently renting, as I mentioned before, from the utility company with energy you can own and produce from your rooftop or from your backyard. There are many different components, but there's really no moving parts as we see a complete solar system. It is connected to the utility grid. We'll talk more about how that works and why that's important as we progress through this webinar. There are strong, currently, federal incentives. There's a federal tax credit. You may be eligible for up to 30% tax credit. So let's say the system costs $30,000. You may be eligible for a credit of up to $10,000 off of that system. In some cases, there are utility credits. We will do the research in your particular area and ensure that we apply those credits to the proposal that's generated for you. Now, these incentives are time sensitive, but the good news is you're informed about them, and should you move forward soon, then you won't be impacted by the incentives as they go away. I'd like to take a look at some of the laws that are occurring around the world today. Up until recently, there were 28 cities who enacted a law that requires homes to go solar when they're new construction or renovation beyond a certain percentage. Recently, California enacted a law that by mandate, starting January 1st in 2020, all new construction homes must have solar. The purpose of this is going to become a consistent and ongoing trend. And as the laws require you to become solar or adopt solar, you can imagine that those incentives that exist will go away. There's no reason to incentivize something that's actually required by law. I'd like to look at the price of gas versus a kilowatt hour of electricity. Most of us know what we pay for a gallon of gasoline. If you're like me, you might even drive a few extra miles to your favorite station or to save a few cents per gallon. What if you had been given the option to lock in gas at $1 a gallon or less 20 years ago? Would you have opted in for that service? Well, do you know what you're currently paying for a kilowatt hour of electricity? Well, most people don't know what that is, but a kilowatt hour is a measurement of how much energy you're using, much like a gallon is a measurement of liquid capacity. But unlike gasoline pricing, most people don't know what they're paying for a kilowatt hour. When you rent electricity from the utility, you pay for it by the kilowatt hour. Many of us are paying for hundreds to thousands of kilowatt hours every single month, and we have no idea what we're paying for a kilowatt hour. So let's take a look at what you're paying. And by the way, have you noticed that your rates keep increasing? The national average is that they increase about 5 to 6% per year, which means they double just about every 10 years. So if you're paying $150 or $200 a month now, that means you'll be paying $300 to $400 a month in 10 years, or $600 to $800 a month in 20 years. We can help you lock in those prices for life. And that's really a big reason people are looking into solar, is to protect themselves from the volatility that exists with utility kilowatt hour rates. And what's great with solar is we will help you with all of that. So take a look at your bill. And sometimes it's a little misleading. You can see how there's a lot of miscellaneous charges here. Look at two things. Look at the complete price of your bill. Take that very bottom total, divide that by the number of kilowatt hours you've used. That's what you're paying for a kilowatt hour of energy. So take a look at your bill, and we'll talk about how we'll use your bill in just a few minutes. Now, it's important to know that the systems that we have today are largely tied to the grid. And this is tied into what we call net metering. Power is only generated during the daylight hours, and that's when demand is typically low. Most of your power is needed at night when there's no sun out. The solar system is actually connected to the grid. So the grid acts as a giant battery. The grid receives the excess energy produced during the daylight hours, and then you pull from the grid during the night when there's no sun. And the power company credits you for any electricity you put on and then deducts those credits at night when you draw. Then they bill you if there is any difference each month. And typically there's an annual true-up statement that then gets the total amount that you've used versus what you've provided the grid and does a true-up statement. Very powerful. This is a typical grid in someone's home. You can see this black line here as the energy that's being consumed during the day has peaks and valleys. This section over here, the blue section, is what one is renting or purchasing from the grid. And this is what's being powered during the day when the panels are active and producing solar energy. A lot of times people say, well, what happens with all that extra energy? Because that's what's going to happen. Your system's designed because of net metering to produce more energy than you actually use. What happens is, for all intents and purposes, it's reallocated to you vis-a-vis net metering, and you get the benefit of sending whatever you've put to the grid back in the form of a credit, and it nets the production. Very simple approach, but typically a graphic helps that a little bit more. There are a number of variables. Not all homes are eligible for solar. And some of the things that need to be considered are your cost of energy. You now know how to determine that. Your credit score, that is, of course, if you're going to take advantage of our low interest financing. We also need to look at the roofing and the shading and the size or rating of your electric panel. Generally, the electric panel needs to be a 200 amp. However, there are cases that we can do lower amperage panels, but that is something we'll take into consideration to see if we need to upgrade your panel to the most recent panels that are available. And then we'll look at your roof. We need to look at the orientation, the size, the shape, because the best production is going to be from a roof that's facing south. We need to see if there's enough space for the panels on the south side, and then the second best option would be east-west. We'll want to take a look at the quality of your shingles to see if we need to replace those. Are they in good shape? Well, the good news is if we do need to replace your roof, you may also be eligible for a 30% tax credit for the new roof in addition to the solar system. And then we'll look at, again, where the trees are facing, if there's any that would impact the potential shading. And oftentimes we can do that remotely with the software that we have, but the best way is to actually come to your home and look and see exactly whether your home has the right parameters to go solar. Oftentimes people are concerned about whether the weather affects production of the panels, and there's some great stats to show you that even when it's cloudy and raining, you will still be producing solar, depending upon how heavy the rains and clouds are. Obviously, depending upon where you are, fog might exist. If that is, you can see how minimally that impacts. This is a very common concern that people have, is what happens as my panels get older? We'll talk about warranty and that type of thing as we progress here, but the average degradation or drop in production is only about 0.5% to 1% per year. So if you take a look at even the worst case scenario of 1% drop per year and some of the lower cost panels, not what we use, mind you, you're looking at a 1% drop. In 20 years, your system will still be producing 80% of the energy that it created when you first had the system installed. So it's really not that much to be concerned about. Here are the top 5 reasons that homeowners today are asking to go solar. We can reduce or eliminate your electric bill. It provides you with an asset that continues to grow because you're producing energy at a fixed cost as opposed to the variable cost with utility. It's really one of the most solid investments. If you do a solar system for cash, you're looking at a 10 to 30% annual return on your investment. Of course, you reduce the environmental impact. And I think most importantly is you take control of your energy bill. You will always know what you're paying for your energy. You'll be able to predict that there'll be no increases in your pricing virtually for the rest of your life. Now, here are the recap of the benefits. You see immediate savings typically. Here in Texas, for example, you may not see savings year 1, year 2, year 3, but you're going to be able to forecast based upon 60 years of data how much you're going to save as we continue to grow. It really depends on how much you're paying. So we'll look at that with your bill. You'll increase the value of your home. And if you look today with Fannie Mae, they've recently passed new laws about the evaluations of solar, and just the add-on value of your home can be more than the cost of the actual system yourself, even though you've come out of pocket zero. You lock in that energy cost. You're always going to know what you're paying for your energy. And then when you own that system, if you pay cash up front, you own it day one. Most people take advantage of low interest financing. We finance our homes, we finance our cars. It's very common. Now we finance solar. When that loan's paid off, you no longer pay for the energy that those systems are producing for your home. So what we'll do as we move forward is we'll create a custom proposal for you. One of the questions you'll have is whether you want to take advantage of a zero down, low interest loan, and we'll provide you with that proposal to consider. And there are, of course, some options. You can stick with what you're currently doing today. If you don't mind having unpredictable rates and investing into someone else's power plant as opposed to your own, something that actually adds no value to your home, then stick with what you're doing. That's perfectly fine. Or you can go solar with a zero out-of-pocket cost option, immediate savings that you can predict the bill that you're going to have for the rest of your life, and you can add value to your home rather than that of the utility. So think about that. Which one seems to be the better option for you?